Teachers who regularly get invited to high school reunions. What are the most amazing transformations, common patterns, epic stories, saddest declines and etc. you've seen through the years? In high school I was pretty good friends with a guy that was a bit overweight, about 6 feet 4 inches, really smart and a bit nerdy. Lost track of him after high school, but saw him at our 10-year reunion. He was the talk of the reunion. Still tall, lost all the weight, and was in great shape, had long hair like Fabio, and was a doctor. He showed up with a beautiful wife. He gave us his contact info and invited us to Atlanta to stay with him in his huge house. After the reunion I tried to get in touch. Contact info didn't work, and through some sleuthing I found out he was neither married nor a doctor. He was still in good shape, can't fake that, but faked everything else. What a twist. Did anyone else in your circle try the same thing and found out he was a fraud? Did you ever find out what he actually did? He worked in a medical office, but wasn't a doctor. He was like a medical assistant or something like that. Not a PA or an RNP. A previous student of mine grew up in a horrible home situation. This individual was really smart, and I did my best to help them apply/receive many scholarships and grants, and eventually went to an Ivy League school to get away from their abusive home life. They made it big, and I mean big time millionaire. Made their family jealous, but in the end their hard work paid off. It was great to see, and I was so proud of what they'd become. Edit. The best thing was seeing them break the chain. The family had problems going back numerous generations, and to see this generation change was all worth it. That's amazing. Seems like you're a good teacher too, since you cared about that kid's life and helped him out with applications too. You can be proud of yourself too. I appreciate that, but I know many teachers who are better people than me. I'm just happy that our paths crossed in life so that I could help this person. Knowing they're happy now and living a good life is what makes it worth it for me. We still keep in touch actually. I'm their kid's godparent. Going to post my mom's story because she doesn't have an account. She was a home economics teacher, and specifically she had one class called relationship psychology where every day to start the class she would read through that cheesy Dear B newspaper advice column to talk with the class on how they would respond to the problem. One day ahead of class she noticed that a letter published talked about a kid who sounded a lot like a student in her class and was located in our hometown. They always end the letter with a name and city, and my mom was always very involved with her students and their personal lives. The letter talked about a kid who was terrified of going to college and how he got rejected from all the schools he wanted to go to, had no self-confidence, abusive father, money problems, that he would lose all his close friends, couldn't stand the idea of leaving his disabled mother, and that he felt enormous pressure as a first-gen college student and had ultimately decided not to go to college at all. She read it to the class and they discussed, and she could tell the boy in her class was very uncomfortable. After class she asked him about it, and it was in fact a letter written by him. He never thought it would get published and responded to by the Dear B column, and was super embarrassed. B, like most students, never even knew what the Dear B column was until they took her class. Afterwards she talked through everything with him and talked with his mother and evaluated his options on how best to approach college. She taught him finances, loans, scholarship options, his mom's condition, and everything, and got him to a place where he felt better about his future. 4 years later the kid ended up being the speaker at his college graduation of over 7,000 kids, met his wife at college, all of his groomsmen, and got a killer job through his career fair on campus before graduating. She flew out and attended as he invited her. Was always blown away by that. Used to have this one kid in my art class in senior high who treated it like one of those easy to pass classes. He was a big guy, much bigger than the other students, and he'd use his size and strength to bully other kids, the smaller ones. He was a little bitch underneath it all. He would draw guns and crosses in his art book with pseudo gangster sayings like live by dagun, die by dagun, and F da police. You get the idea. Come reunion time, which was some 5 years later, he's found a girl who really reined him in, and, kind of like a hunter taming a wolf, really turned him into a good man. They had a baby boy, and he's a responsible father, and does yoga on the rocks by the beach. Complete 180. I do think he was a good guy underneath it all. He just needed direction from someone who could break down his walls. Teacher here. You see defense mechanisms like these all the time in kids who have been destroyed by someone they trusted, or they've been bullied and they are trying to scare people away before they have the chance to hurt them. Or, I mean, sometimes the kid is just a psychopath. That happens, but more rarely. One of the best parts about being a teacher is when you actually get a defense mechanism kid to trust you and others, so they stop being so scary all the time. Not a teacher, but I went to my 10-year reunion. Back in high school we had a kid who has Asperger's and was a little weird. He was, however, amazing at the yo-yo, having picked one up during middle school when we had that yo-yo trick assembly. After everyone else had stopped walking the dog in 8th grade, this guy was doing more and more elaborate tricks every day during lunch. He was bullied and teased, but he continued doing what he loved. So, at our 10-year reunion, people from every strata of high school popularity was there, including this guy. He was his same old self, but more confident. I asked him if he still yo-yos, and he busted out his custom-made titanium yo-yo that he said he made on a CNC lathe. He then starts to do some tricks and a large crowd gathered around. It was quite the show. He had gotten very good. When he finished, people clapped and cheered, and even the jockey dudes from back in the day fist bumped him and told him how badass he was. The most amazing transformation was everyone else. Nobody teased him for being who he was anymore. They now admired him for being so passionate about something. Not a teacher, but I went to my 20th about 5 years ago. The woman organizing the event was in my class since 3rd grade and was always bright, intelligent, charming and pretty. She was very active in high school and by all counts had a very bright future. Speaking to her at the reunion, it seemed that had happened for her. We talked about her self-help/life coaching company and how they are growing and doing great. I asked her to send me more information when I got home, which is on the other side of the country. I got an email from her introducing me to her West Coast partner whose email was from the LosAngeles.com, which I thought sounded very contrary to what I was expecting. A quick look at their website had me immediately worried, and a short Google later I saw that they are an offshoot of the NXIVM cult that has been all over the news. The woman I was talking to, that I knew since age 8, was Lauren Salzman, who just this week pleaded guilty to holding 2 sex slaves locked in a room for 2 years. She was trying to recruit me and basically everyone at the reunion into NXIVM. I noped right out of that email conversation and have been watching everything unfold for the last 5 years. They are all looking at some serious jail time now. A former student of mine grew up in an ultra-conservative Christian home. He and his siblings were never allowed to socialize with other students during lunch and recess. Whenever they had free time at school they had to read their Bibles. In science class they were forbidden to learn about evolution. Every essay, short story, personal narrative, and poem he wrote for me involved some kind of Christian theme. When he graduated, he immediately enrolled in a big seminary in our area, and that was the last I heard of him until his class invited me to their 10-year reunion. This same kid showed up with sleeve tattoos, piercings everywhere, slamming beer after beer after beer, and smoking like a locomotive. When I asked what he was doing now, he responded he currently was a bouncer at a strip club. I'd like to sit down and talk to that guy and hear his story. Sounds like he went on quite a journey. I still talk to him from time to time, and he says he's truly happy with his life journey simply because he made the journey himself without his mother telling him what to do. One kid grew up to be that guy, treading the line between jolly neckbeard and somewhat scary incel. I saw him after a full 12 years had passed. The worst part is, he was one of the most popular and socially adjusted kids in school. Always invited to parties, girls always trying to spend time with him. He'd always get away with absurd things in school because even the teachers liked him. He was just really funny and naturally charismatic, not to mention fit and handsome. However, he was strictly religious, so he never had sex with any girls. A few years after graduation, He became an atheist, or just a Gnostic, but by this time he had a dead-end job at a supermarket, had gained weight, and was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z because he related to unleashing his true power. So he spent like 5 years desperately messaging girls from HS, trying to say hey I can have sex now, but he was just not that attractive anymore and his social skills had deteriorated tremendously. He was rejected by every single girl that was pining over him just a few years ago in high school. He ended up publicly coming out as a proud incel 2 years before the reunion, in a post where he declared war on women and socially adjusted men. He often posted about being a virgin and how Christianity basically made him an incel because he missed out every chance for sex he ever had. So at the reunion, he came wearing a white t-shirt with the words F you. He'd walk up to now married women that he had previously solicited and just smirked silently, waiting for them to read the shirt. He was thrown out by the venue after about 40 minutes since so many people complained of his creepy behavior. Hero to zero in no time flat.